Jackson Arnold is the SEC's leading rusher after week 1. But will the Tigers need his arms more than his legs headed into Oklahoma? Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the War 4. I'm your host, Mike G. Thank you so much for turning us up and turning us on. We'll turn it out. I'm here with my good friend Taylor Davis, sideline reporter for ESPN, to talk a little Auburn football. Taylor, week 1 of college football was amazing. Auburn wins on the road versus Baylor by a couple scores. A score I called. I forgot.
Yeah.
You made a prediction on this one. What was your score? Do you
I
remember?
didn't give a score prediction, but I did pick Auburn, but I didn't give a score.
Well, look, Auburn won, and that's what matters the most here on the Auburn Express. So for the next 2 weeks, they will spend time fine-tuning this offense, but they leaned on the run. Hugh Freeze fought his inner demons and ran the football instead of trying to pass it against a Baylor defense that, quite honestly, couldn't stop a toddler from rushing the ball.
Yeah.
It seemed like definitely couldn't stop Auburn. Talk to me about Jackson Arnold and your assessment of him after week 1. There was a lot said about his confidence and all this stuff. And look, man, he went out there and he just played football. He looked like a 5-star athlete on Friday night.
He really did. And it felt like it was so necessary for him. It really felt like a piece of it that was required for Auburn to have the season that they're all hoping for. Jackson couldn't garner as much confidence, no offense, if he went and did that against Ball State and South Alabama. Sorry, it's just not going to do the same thing. He needed to be a big part of why Auburn won the game on Friday, and he did just that. Obviously, showcasing his ability with his legs and being the SEC's leading rusher is the craziest thing in week 1, given how much the SEC loves to run the ball and the backs that are in this conference. The fact that Auburn's quarterback is the leading rusher is pretty phenomenal. But beyond that, he seems to have this internal clock that I think you could really see kind of in action. There was a rhythm, even if he was taking off and running, there was a rhythm. You could see him kind of going through his progressions. And I know Hugh has talked a lot about wanting to keep him in the pocket a little bit longer and all of that. I thought the offensive line did a good job. Both lines of scrimmage were impressive. I have some areas of concern, as we all should, but I really was happy for Jackson. I think it was important for him. It's really wild to me, Mike, to watch their touchdown celebrations be TikTok dances. It makes me realize how far away from college I actually am. Every time he did this thing, I was like, oh boy. But he was having fun. He was the straw that stirred the drink on Friday night. And he needed that for his psyche to really believe that he is Auburn's QB1. And everyone that was up in arms about Hugh making a comment about playing all 3 quarterbacks, it was ridiculous. And this was exactly what Jackson needed to do in week 1. And it's what the team needed to see from him in terms of being the guy and playing with confidence. Now, there are some questions that I still have that I was hoping would get answered in week 1, but weeks 2 and 3 set up well for them to do that.
Taylor, you spit an absolute bar on last week's show in saying that Auburn's offensive line had to be their not so secret weapon this season. They flexed. They flexed on Friday night, and because they were able to flex, Auburn didn't really have to show anything in the pass game, which I think is advantage Auburn. Like, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, but they couldn't pass," and I said, "No, they didn't pass," and there's a difference. Between didn't and couldn't.
Yes.
If you were Hugh Freeze, you didn't put anything on tape for defenses to study as far as Jackson Arnold and the Auburn passing game.
Yeah, you didn't because you didn't have to. So it wasn't a matter of couldn't. I will say, though, there were some attempts in the pass game that were made that were a little bit off. I mean, the first drive going 3 and out and 0 yards, that makes you a little concerned because that's quite literally the one that you script and prepare all off season, but I digress. I do think that there were some, I mean, you had Cam Coleman open on a slant route pretty early that was a miss. And I mean, a guy like Cam Coleman only having 1 catch in an entire game, that's not going to be the formula. I like how we're utilizing Eric Singleton. I think there's so much more that he could, I think he's like the Swiss Army knife of this offense. I think we're going to see a lot from him moving forward. I believe Malcolm Simmons only had 1 catch, maybe 2. So while I agree, the coach will tell you every time, you take what the defense is giving you, okay? And Baylor couldn't stop the run. So what are we going to do? We're going to run the ball. I loved Auburn put out a video today with Damari Alston saying there are 3 things you know for sure: death, taxes, and Auburn's going to run the football. And I love that line because you think back to so much of Auburn's success in the past 10, 15 years, it's those run-heavy offenses. And so to not force something that wasn't necessary, I think was good on the coaches. However, you are going to have to do that in weeks 2 and 3, and therefore it is going to get put on tape against an opponent, 2 opponents that you very well should win comfortably. But this pass game has to develop a rhythm, and whether or not you're going to have to utilize it, because if teams can't stop the run all day, but you're going to have it, because eventually there is going to be specifically SEC defensive fronts that are well prepared for Jackson's, Houdini antics. And same thing happened with Bo Nix and even at times Peyton Thorne. So it does have to be a part of this offense. I agree. It's not necessarily a bad thing that it wasn't part of week 1's equation, but it doesn't answer the questions of if the passing game has taken a step forward. And for longevity of season, it will be imperative that comes together.
There will continue to be questions about this offense until such a time as they beat an SEC opponent on the road, a good SEC opponent on the road, and Hugh Freeze gets his signature win. Now, I think this is as close to a signature win as he's gotten in his first 3 years, but there are going to be more opportunities out there. And given the way week 1 went for a certain other team in the state, suddenly those top 4 slots in the conference, which I would say the top 4 teams in the SEC are going to have a chance to make the college football playoff.
Okay.
Those are going to be your 10-win teams. The precedent was set last year, 10 wins from the SEC, and you're in. Ole Miss, Alabama, Missouri, South Carolina all had a shot. They blew it. If they could have gotten their 10th win, they would have been into that playoff. If you're Hugh Freeze, a little early to be talking about making the playoffs, but it's not too early to talk about Auburn being in the playoff conversation come November, which I think is a good place to be in year 3 for Hugh Freeze. If they win 9 games, you can still I'm moving this program forward. And I told you that I would. And now that I have all the talent, and it takes the negative recruiting ammo out of the chamber for the other SEC coaches to say, hey, man, they've got all the talent and they don't know what to do with it.
Well, and honestly, a lot of the reasoning that he has given the past 2 years as to why things haven't come together are no longer applicable this season. Like you said, the recruiting class, 2 back-to-back top 10 recruiting classes, impact players out of the transfer portal. I believe we're like a top 6 transfer portal class. So the talent has been acquired. You've got consistency of staff, of personnel, of system. So honestly, a lot of, and like we talked about a couple weeks ago, the schedule sets up the best that it has in years for an Auburn team. So a lot of the reasoning or excuses, however you want to phrase it, don't apply to this season. So I agree with you. I think Auburn being in a playoff conversation by the time rankings start coming out mid-season is necessary for Hugh Freeze, and it's necessary for an Auburn program that has every resource available to be a playoff team. And so starting with a win like this, I agree. I think the Texas A&M win was pretty big as well, but this one being on the road Friday night, it was a blackout for Baylor. Like, they had all the hype around them, and performing the way Auburn did, I think, is a big win. I think you also have a really big opportunity with Georgia coming to town in October. So I think that it sets up well for Hugh to kind of make a statement. I do need to see a little bit more from the defense as well, specifically the DBs in the secondary. I think they got diced a bit more than any of us expected. Sawyer Robertson with a pretty comfortable 400-yard night through through the air. So that's going to have to get cleaned up a little bit. I think where you felt really comfortable on the defensive side, maybe you raise up a little bit. But regardless, both sides of the ball, special teams, you love to see a return for a touchdown. My God, Pleasant. Like, come on.
Like Devin Hester out there, man.
Oh, my gosh. That was so fun to see. And then Alex McPherson returning to kicking duties. I'm just so happy to see. But across the board, Auburn cannot play like they've done anything yet. You take confidence from it, but do not think you've arrived, because I can turn on this tape and point out several things that need to improve. You focus on that the next 2 weeks in these situations that should very comfortably be yours. And you have to be a better team than you were Friday night when you play Oklahoma. You have not arrived yet. You got a win that you very well should have. How do you build on it?
Taylor, I want to, in the second half of the show, I want to talk about them not arriving. The AP, as we are recording this, just released their revised top 25. Auburn did not crack it with that win on the road versus Baylor. We'll talk about that right after a quick word from our sponsors. Our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORTER. Get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Visit them for all your herbal medicinal needs. If you are looking for some non-traditional ways to solve the issues of pain or sleep, the Rogue Shop has special products that can help you in that regard. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Longtime sponsors of the War Report. Our guy Richard puts a little something extra in there for everybody using code REPORT today. Please visit them. I want to thank our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off. Fire pits and Kamado grills. You want to be outside this summer grilling or just staying in shape with some Golden's Cast Iron weights. So many of you started working out at home during the pandemic and never went back to the gym. Golden's Cast Iron has lifetime products that will last you forever and stuff that you can hand down as well, too. Again, goldenscastiron.com/WR to get your products today. Work out, grill out, chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. I want to thank our friends at AIM and Associates. Abel's Iron and More. We want to give a big shout out to them for joining the show as a sponsor. An Auburn family doing things the Auburn way. They've been in business for almost 25 years, and they've managed over $200 million for clients in over 25 states and 2 foreign countries. Not some big corporation. As I mentioned, this is an Auburn family providing honest guidance and top-notch service. You get the feel of a small town with years of insight, perspective, and results. Jeff, David, and Colin are great to work with. Contact Abel's I Know More and Associates at 912-777-4128. Again, that's 912-777-4128. Or visit AIMAINC.com to see why they're different. The War Report has been compensated by Abel's I Know More and Associates for this endorsement. Abel's I Know More and Associates is a registered investment advisor. Registration as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. The information in this advertisement is for informational purposes only and should not be considered personalized investment advice. All investing involves risk, including the potential for loss of principal, and past performance is not indicative of future results. In football, past performance could be indicative of future results. Well, we certainly hope so after the Baylor game.
Yeah.
But the AP has decided that Auburn is still on the outside looking in the receiving votes other column here after week 1. Look, in your opinion, is this more of a wait and see by the media, by friends in the media? Or is this more of an indication of where they regarded Baylor coming into this matchup? What do you think about Auburn? I thought they would be somewhere between 20 and 25 in this one, especially with some of the teams that went down on Saturday. I don't get it. I think they're a top 25 team, but they're in the receiving votes column. And Taylor, before I let you go here, not even at the top of that, right? Yeah. Utah, Louisville, Missouri, Kansas State, and Tulane receiving more votes than Auburn. Auburn tied with USC for, I guess, 41 votes.
Kansas State, who barely beat North Dakota after getting their tails handed to them by Iowa State and Dublin. I digress. I also think it's odd that TCU is not getting looked at after the dominating performance that they had last night against UNC.
Behind Auburn.
Now, I, for one, did not anticipate UNC to be a good team this season. No disrespect to Bill Belichick, but I don't think you bring in 70 transfer portal players and all the chaos that has come with Bill Belichick, and it's just going to click right away. Sonny Dykes put on a clinic last night, so I think it's ridiculous that TCU is not being talked about either. But this is nothing new, Mike. Auburn getting snubbed by the media? Come on. Like, that's another thing you can just count on. I think more so, though, and this is an absurdity, it also is still reflective of the preseason rankings. And so we have to recognize that we had Alabama in the top 10. They fall to Florida State. So we're going to drop them to 20 because we had them ranked at the beginning. So I think it's more indicative of that. Auburn wasn't ranked to begin. You get an impressive win, but is it impressive? Because we don't really know much about Baylor, and they weren't ranked heading into season either. So we're just going to leave it as is. The 25 that we had our eyes on preseason, that's kind of where we start this thing, and we start to adjust from there. I think it's ridiculous. I think preseason rankings are ridiculous. Clearly, those went up in flames this past weekend. So I'm not necessarily surprised, and I prefer it that way. Auburn does better when no one's expecting them to be on top of the mountain. So let's continue to talk about Hugh Freeze golfing in the offseason and playing 3 quarterbacks because it served him well on Friday.
Yeah, right. I'll tell you, for a lot of people, to the uneducated onlooker, it appeared that Auburn made this huge jump. And I'm telling you, they moved the ball last year. They just couldn't score. They solved their red zone woes. Jackson Arnold makes you play 11 on 11. His legs neutralize a lot that defenses are going to try to throw at Auburn. And look, man, this was a kid who went out and beat Alabama last year.
Now, with his legs. 131 yards against Alabama last year.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, look, it was Kalen DeBoer's Alabama, but it was still Alabama. And those were a lot of Saban's players. But I think that if you're Hugh Freeze, you still have a lot more to prove. And that's what this week 1 ranking says to me. They left Auburn on the outside. And in a few weeks, you'll have a chance. I think if they beat Oklahoma in Norman, they definitely will crack the top 25.
Yeah.
But you've got Texas A&M on the road, and then you've got Georgia at home in consecutive weeks. So more opportunities to prove yourself. If Auburn is 4-2, I've said this from the beginning of the season, coming out of that first 6-game stretch, they are in great position to try to make a run at this playoff, getting Missouri, Vanderbilt, Mercer, Arkansas, Kentucky in a 5-game stretch. Wow, man, I can't. I like where Auburn's at right now, and I agree with you.
I agree.
If past this prologue, when everyone expects Auburn to do nothing, it's when they do the most. Before we get out of here, Taylor, I want to end this segment on a fun note. You're joining us every week here, my friend. I want to give you a platform to get your deepest belly laugh at Alabama and what happened to them Saturday. The Tide go down into Florida State, and not only did they go down, they kind of looked a hot mess offensively.
They did.
Yeah, there is maybe a little bit of a changing of the guard happening in the SEC right now. I do a power ranking segment with my good friend Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered. This is what we had going in to week 1. He had Texas at 1. Obviously, they lost to Ohio State. Georgia, Alabama, LSU. LSU looked like they could be one of the best teams in the country. Texas A&M, South Carolina won a big road game against Virginia Tech. Florida, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and then he had Auburn way down at 10. Now, I got a sneak peek at his rankings. He moved Auburn up to 8. The SEC is going to look maybe a little unconventional at the top.
Yeah.
But for those who have always said, oh, the SEC is top heavy, yes, there have been two or three teams dominating the top of the SEC for a while, but you've got championship potential in that middle of the pack because 5 different teams have won it all in the last 25 years. Auburn, Florida, LSU, Alabama, and Georgia being the latest. Is this over for Alabama? I feel like this is Hugh Freeze dominating in-state recruiting the way he is. And I mean, I think there's a correlation there between them losing in-state recruits and now losing the way we've seen them in quite some time.
I really hate to say it because I never want to join in on the grabbing of pitchforks, but I do fear that Kalen DeBoer is a little in over his head. It just doesn't seem. Look, I understand week 1 miscues. I understand penalties. They were all over the game that I had this past weekend, so that's going to be a natural part of it. But Alabama looked lethargic. Alabama lacked energy. They lacked discipline, they lacked consistency, and all of those things have been pillars of that Alabama program. And you can't say it's a matter of talent because you've got the talent. Talent acquisition is never going to be an issue at Alabama, nor is resources. And unfortunately, in this game, I do point to coaching and also the lines of scrimmage. They were absolutely pushed around at the lines of scrimmage, and they looked slower. It looked like a physicality thing. It looked like an effort thing. And to me, that is reflective of coaching and someone that is just not upholding the same standard that we are accustomed from seeing from Alabama. Ty Simpson was 22 of 43 for 254 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he was never able to find a rhythm. And everybody wants to very quickly say he's not the guy to be quarterback. What chance did the line give him? I mean, like there were problems from the jump. And so it wasn't so much, I don't hit the panic button because they lost. I hit the panic button because of the way that they lost and the issues that you start to see that are not at all synonymous with Alabama football. And the common denominator here is the coaching change. So I am concerned for Alabama. I'm not concerned for Texas. I think that they will put it together. I think it was an unfair amount of pressure and expectation that was being put on a guy that certainly has the makings, but had not had any experience close to a Matt Patricia coached Ohio State defense. Like the looks they were giving this guy pre-snap were ridiculous for even experienced quarterbacks. So I'm not worried about them. I think Georgia sits in a good situation. I think to your point about the SEC, though, what I try and convey to people who say that the SEC is overrated is it's not just the talent. It's not just the X's and O's. It encompasses the entire experience. That includes game day environments. That includes fandom. That includes media hype. It's a different level, top to bottom in the SEC. And even the mightiest are capable of slipping any given week. It's the parity in the conference. Like you have the likelihood of an opponent who is worse than you having that good day and their crowd being in it, and they just have that advantage. Ole Miss was ranked number 6 when they lost to Kentucky last season. It was Kentucky's lone conference win of the year, but you just have the potential any given week that some weird thing is going to happen because that's the SEC. And so that's where it gets more complicated. I think that ranking that you just gave us is going to continue to flip. I think this year in particular, you've got talent. Tennessee looked better than I expected. Joey Aguilar ran it more efficiently, and they've got a 3-headed monster at running back that's going to continue to churn and move the chains. So I don't think you look past anybody. You can't. And that's what makes it such a difficult conference.
Agreed. Look, I will say this about Alabama. We are probably witnessing the end of one of the greatest consecutive runs at quarterback any school has ever had, starting at Jalen Hurts, going to Tua, then Mac Jones, and then Bryce Young, and then Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, like, again, no shade to Ty Simpson, but at least early on, it doesn't look like he's any of those guys. And so if you're Kalen DeBoer, finding your guy at quarterback is going to be really important because in today's college football, without dynamic quarterback play, you got to be 2021 Georgia, right? Like, I mean, think about that with Stetson Bennett having whole games where he barely passed 12 times in that first championship run because he had a world-class defense. And then in year 2, if he doesn't raise his game, they don't go back to back. I mean, he looked like a pro. I mean, have we seen a bigger jump from a guy from year 1 to year 2 than Stetson Bennett from his first year? It was insane. So I think that Alabama, and I stress this, they dropped Alabama all the way to 20. They are hanging on to the top 25 by a thread, and they have Wisconsin and Georgia in the next 3 games. So, we could be talking about an unranked tied team here in the next 3 weeks. I'm here for it. I know you're here for it. Look, Taylor, I want to thank you for joining me today. I got to get you out of here, but before we let you go, you've got something new going on that I would love for you to tell our listeners about.
I'm assuming you're talking about my podcast.
That's right. That's
all
right.
Just checking. I'm a busy gal, so I never know what you're talking about. Yes. So some of your listeners may be aware as well. Jason Campbell and I, Auburn legend, have done an Auburn podcast together for years and took some time away and kind of reevaluated. And this season, we actually partnered with FanDuel and have expanded the show to an SEC podcast. It is all 16 covering the action from the week before, previewing the one to come. And we've got some great guests and interviews lined up for the coming weeks. So that is called SEC State of Mind. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We also do episodes live on YouTube every Tuesday at 1 o'clock Central Time. So make sure you tune in if you're able. And you can follow me on social media platforms at Taylor Beth Davis. And this weekend, I will be on the call for Virginia, NC State, noon Eastern on ESPN2.
Guys, you've asked for more Taylor Davis. That's how you get more Taylor Davis. SEC State of Mind. Did I get that right?
Yes.
SEC State of Mind. We're in an SEC State of Mind here at the Auburn Express. Guys, thanks for joining us today. Hit the comments. Let us know what you think about the AP not moving Auburn into the top 25 in the rankings. And while you're in that comment section, smash that super thanks button. Your financial support helps keep the work that we're doing here going. We are the War Report on every social media platform, so please hit like and subscribe. TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, Warriors.